people who are on the terror watch list should not be able to purchase a gun. Now, this is interesting since the Islamo-Nazi who killed 49 human beings in Orlando and wounded 53 others was not on the terror watch list at the time. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the terror watch list. It has absolutely nothing to do with the no-fly list, which is totally different than the terror watch list. And many, many people on the terror watch list are not terrorists. Many of them are law-abiding American citizens. Just as the federal government is incompetent at the IRS and the EPA and the Ag Department and all the rest of it, so it's incompetent in pulling this together. Who said? Some of the auditing departments of the federal government. But the Democrats always have an answer. When we're attacked, the answer is we surrender our civil liberties. I don't trust the Democrats on the left with anything. Terror watch list, then people are added to the terror watch list. Same people who unleashed the Internal Revenue Service on the American people, I should say conservatives and Tea Party activists, and certain Christian groups. Now, I have a question. How many people coming into this country are terrorists? Do we have an answer to that? No, we don't have an answer to that. Now, why don't we have an answer to that? Because of the incompetent Obama administration and the rest of it. You want to cut the chances of mass murder? Then you put in place a system that vets people coming into this country, particularly from Muslim countries where there's a terrorist threat. But we're told we can't do that. Instead, once again, everybody comes under the blanket. So everybody's in, then nobody's in. And the Republicans are moving in this direction. Donald Trump has said today that he's going to talk to the National Rifle Association about this. Something can't be done. Something can't be done. So once again, the left controls America's agenda. Once again, the left controls how we respond to the left's failures in fighting terrorism, to the left's attack on law and order, to the left's attack on national sovereignty. And you watch, all these pretend conservatives on Fox were called right-wingers. You right-wingers out there, all the right-wingers out there, you watch how they move behind Trump on this because it's him. Principles out the window, rather than his surrogates saying, wait a minute, you need to understand this a little bit more thoroughly. Mitch McConnell, all in. This guy McCall, or whatever his name is, head of the House Intelligence Committee, all in. As the Republicans move left now on guns, where once again we're not represented. Don't you like the phrase terror watch list? Terror watch. The mass murderer who killed those people in Orlando wasn't on the terror watch list. Why wasn't he on the terror watch list? Not at the time that he slaughtered all those people. What happened? Where was he? How did his parents get into this country? I keep asking this question. You got an Afghani, and by the way, there's many wonderful Afghani people out there, and I happen to know many of them, who are thrilled to be in the United States. But obviously, this family's not part of them. So how did his old man and his mother get into this country? On what pretext? So the answer is always the same. Rather than the government doing the job it's supposed to do, following the immigration laws, enforcing them, executing them, rather than doing what it's supposed to do, it wants more power. To do what? You know, all this talk about the AR-15, you've heard it, right? I've mentioned it too because it keeps coming up. What is an AR-15? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the mass murder in Orlando didn't even use an AR-15. And yet they want to ban the AR-15. Because the left doesn't know one weapon from the other. It doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter. They don't own guns, and they don't think anyone else should own a gun. Sit here. It's baffling to me. Because some of the answers, while the matters are complex, some of the answers seem so simple. Control who's coming into the country. Make sure you know who they are. This terror watch list. Why aren't all these terrorists on the list? Were the mass murders in San Bernardino on the terror watch list? Was the mass murder at Fort Hood on the terror watch list? The mass murder in Orlando wasn't on the terror watch list. So who's on the terrorist watch list? If not the terrorists. And so now this is the big issue. This is the cause célèbre. This list, which had nothing to do with what took place early Sunday morning. Nothing. Zero. The AR-15 was on the list. The AR-15 had nothing to do with what took place Sunday morning. Nothing. Wasn't used. Now we find out the mass murderer had taken a few trips to Saudi Arabia. That should have popped up on the radar screen. His co-workers said he was threatening violence. They were dismissed as racists. Some of them were afraid to come forward because they didn't want to be accused of being anti-Muslim. He was on the FBI's radar up until 2014. Afterwards, they dropped him. Why? Why? Because you don't have enough to prosecute somebody? You drop them? Terror watch list. The 2 Chechens in Boston during the second Boston massacre. The Obama administration knew who they were. The Russians told them who they were. The Russians said, watch out for these 2. They have ties to Chechen terrorists. That's our concern. They interviewed them, and that was that. Where's the investigation of that? Nah. Second Amendment's got to go. Hey, look, folks, the Bill of Rights, you purists out there, you right-wingers. We need a balance. As if there are no gun laws in this country, federal, state, and local, when in fact there's scores of them, which have done damn little good. So here we are, facing terrorism. And the answer is what? After the same people have brutalized local law enforcement, after the same people have turned federal law enforcement into a politically correct operation, now they turn again for the 100th time on your ability to protect yourself. The debate isn't these gun-free zones and what an outrage they are. The debate isn't these sanctuary cities and what an outrage they are. The debate isn't this reckless immigration policy instituted by this president unconstitutionally. No, none of that's debated. We even have Democrats running around saying, hey, look, just like the First Amendment, the Second Amendment isn't sacrosanct. Right, none of the Bill of Rights. It's incredible. I've been telling you now for years that even with all this talk about a wall on the southern border, we need a wall to prevent people coming in here illegally. I agree. But I've also been a lone voice year after year telling you about visas, that 40 to 45% of the people who are here illegally came through the front door legally through our visa system, and they overstay their visa, and we're not tracking them down and deporting them. And now there's a piece in the Washington Times. Immigration agents catch an abysmally small percentage of the illegal immigrants who arrive on visas but overstayed their welcome, authorities admitted to Congress Tuesday, describing a loophole that those around the globe are increasingly using to gain a foothold in the U.S. Another immigration loophole. Wow! A loophole. At least 480,000 people overstayed their visas last year, adding to a backlog that's reached some 5 million total. That's my point. 40 to 45% of the people here illegally have committed perjury on their applications for entry. But immigration agents launched investigations into just 10,000 of them, or about 0.2%, and arrested fewer than 2,000, less than 0.04%. Yes, so let's give the federal government more power. If it would just do what it's supposed to do, if it would just prioritize its requirements, its policies, its resources, we would be a much safer nation. We utilize our prioritization scheme along with the resources that we have, Craig Healy, Assistant Director for National Security Investigations at the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, said, as he struggled to defend the administration's meager efforts, we just need more money. More money? To do what? It's a policy problem. It's not a money problem. Law enforcement at the federal level had tips about this Islamo-Nazi. They had tips from coworkers. They had tips from Disney that the man was a threat and a potential threat. Doesn't need to be on some list. They had him. He was denied an attempt to buy body armor, but he was approved to purchase more weapons. They had him. It's better than a list. It's better than a list. They knew who he was. They interviewed him twice. Coworkers came forward. Other people came forward. They knew who he was. Screw the list. He is the list. Can Obama explain this? No. Can the Attorney General explain this? No. Can the FBI explain this? The Director, Comey? No, he says everything's fine. Wouldn't change a thing. Can Dianne Feinstein explain this? No. Not even looking at it. The Democrats, like a bunch of lemmings, all in one motion. Attack the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment. What about the faults and the failures right here in this case? Nothing. I suspect if the president was Republican under these conditions, Mr. Producer, you'd be hearing the left say what? They'd not only be going on and on about the Second Amendment, but they'd be saying, this Republican president must have something against gay people because his administration didn't act properly or quickly enough. The whole damn thing is outrageous. What's going on right now? And there's going to be more of this. more pressure to change the Constitution without a benefit of an amendment. And the Republicans are about to fold. The putative nominee for the Republican nomination is about to fold. Oh, his surrogates will run to the defense because they act like liberals now.